heavily aided by the media and also infringed in the end. I think he's an example of a politician that was heavily, like there's loads of
decide what is going to be news. They decide what is going to be news. So they ignore certain news stories, and I think that's a tragedy. They set the news agenda, so we're not hearing anything about the biggest Zara Sultana's Jeremy Corbyn's party. What was their media strategy in terms of new social media?
My name's Simon Shaw. I'm a teacher at a comprehensive school just outside London, to the east of London. I teach humanities subjects, but with a focus on the upper end of the school, the older students, A-level sociology and A-level politics. I was the first person to go to university in my family. I did a politics degree in the English Midlands, a university called Warwick, and then I did a teacher training qualification on the South Coast. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Let's have the Tory say.
My name is Raz. I'm 20 years old. I study media and communications for my undergraduate degree. He was my sociology teacher. He was also my fake politics teacher because I used to bunk some of my lessons and I used to join his politics class.
That's such an important point if you're going to make contrasting arguments. That I don't know about your feed, but when I look on my feed, I know I'm old, I used to use Facebook.
He is a very whimsical man. He's always moving around. He's always doing this thing with his hands around his waist. I don't know what that is. He's also like adjusting his glasses and rubbing his head. And he's always talking, like he just never shuts up, which is amazing. He's more of a political activist to me compared to a teacher. Every lesson I ever had with him, he's always talking about activism and politics and like actually making a difference instead of just reading off books and stuff.
I do sometimes have to be cautious. I think it's quite a good thing to be open about your views. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed of anything I believe in. I'm happy to be challenged in my views. I appreciate that some students might not buy into those views. I've never felt the need to be neutral. And let me put it to you like this. When I'm teaching about racism, I don't say, well, the racists have got a point of view. When I'm teaching about drugs education, I don't say, well, let's have a look at it from the drug pusher's point of view. You know, why should I be neutral when it comes to issues about politics? What I want my students to do is think critically. So I don't think we should shy away from presenting a point of view, as long as there's space for students to come in with a counter point of view.
Do you think you're better than everyone else though?
No, I don't think any of us fall into the typical group I'm talking about. We're not the average person.
And we're just
very
no, but that's a typical Tory thing. We're special, but everyone outside
No,
isn't.
but we're more interested in politics than anyone else naturally.
I don't want my students to feel uncomfortable, not included. I want an honest, open discussion. I don't want to feel as though anybody hasn't got the space to voice their opinions. The quote is something like, if you're neutral, you're on the side of the powerful and against the oppressed. It's important to choose sides. And as a sociology teacher, well, let me put it like this once again, there's a long debate in sociology about what the sociologist should be, and the sociologist should always be on the side of the oppressed or the underdog. I can't encourage a student to go on a demonstration. If something goes wrong on that demonstration, I've got a responsibility there. There was an exception to that. The exception was climate activism in 2019, or running up to 2019, when this local authority, which controls this school, and the government in the UK declared a climate emergency. So there's a poster above me here celebrating that we took that poster on our demonstration, and a delegation of teachers were allowed to support our students on those amazing demonstrations in 2019. So we joined our students, they didn't join us. They were in the vanguard and we were there supporting them. And that was so important because there is a narrative that young people don't understand politics, young people can't get involved in politics. But young people knew then that the stakes were really high and it was up to them to seek reparations, that we'd screwed up the world and it was up to them to start the fight back about doing that repair work. Now that was halted by the pandemic and we need to rebuild those movements again. But I'm not going to do that. I'm happy to support, but I can't make a movement out of nothing. And you never know where that movement's going to come from.
I think for me it was so important, I suppose, to have a teacher of politics and of sociology that was constantly actively engaged in these sorts of fields, but also encouraged our engagement in these sorts of fields. Like, I got into a lot of fundraising for Care for Calais and for other things. I spent a lot of my time in this classroom from like the age of 14 until the age of 18. I do think that it's a support that will stick with me. Being in this classroom and having him as my teacher and learning all of these things has given me the interest that I have now. You know, I don't know if I would be pursuing an education in politics had I not had Miss Shaw as my teacher.
I think that a lot of it that the students made was as a result of that activism that came in 2019, that this became a little bit of an activist hub. You know, I didn't do it secretly, the school knew what we were up to, and so we made this room available for students to make posters. I'm looking at some of them, some of them are a little bit spiky. Never mind about A levels, let's worry about C levels. There's one there over there from the Lorix, and I like this one over here. This is environmental. That's so they were very good at coming up with slogans.
There's a lot of students here, but I think the thing about it is, if you look around the crowd, it's so mixed, and that's what's encouraging. It's the young people who are making all the noise, but when they were playing all the old hits at the back there, it was the older people who were dancing. So yeah, when we say this is what community looks like, it really does. This is what community does look like. It's really representative. Young, old, black, white, gay, straight, trans. It's really important. So the slogans are empty slogans. They absolutely mean something.